Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast, the ultimate blueprint for self-love and inner peace. I'm your host, Danielle Band. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, a life coach to women, meditation teacher, and author, I've spent my life studying and learning from the stories that make us human. It's my passion and goal to help you shift your mindset and create a lifelong revolution to help you reach your greatest potential. Our lives can easily be divided into sections that can either be our masters or we can be the masters of them. These sections include spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and financial elements of our lives. It's the financial element that many do not realize truly impacts them on other levels. If we don't have control over our money, we worry, we stress, and we often lose sleep. To go a step further, financial issues rank among the top reasons for relationship failure, and many women stay in abusive relationships because of their fear of losing their money. That's why I sat down with the guru of all things financial, Allison Baggerly from Inspired Budget. You've likely come across her videos on Instagram and TikTok where she breaks down real people's budgets. Today, she guides us through her best budgeting advice and how we can become the masters of our money once and for all. So let's dive right in. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. So if you have opened Instagram at all, you have probably seen Inspired Budget. And I thought, so often women will come into my office and they're talking about their marriage. They're ready to make an exit or a change. And what keeps them in their discomfort is finances. So often, of course, we know that divorce is often driven by financial issues. So I thought, let's bring the expert of all things financial. Allison, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and how it came to be, please.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like that's a long story, but thank you. First off, thank you so much for having me. My name is Allison Baggerly. I am the founder of Inspired Budget, which is a business, and I aim to teach specifically women how to budget, pay off debt, and start building wealth and really just gain confidence with their money. Really, this came out of a need for me because I found myself in a situation where I had zero confidence with money. I was impulse spending all the time, and I was never taught about money. And really, it's very easy to feel like we should be able to point our fingers to our parents and blame them or the school system. But honestly, learning about money in our parents' day and age was very much a privilege. You had to have access to a mentor, or you had to have access to the library, or know how to go to the library, know which books to check out, how to read in English, all of these things. And a lot of our parents were figuring out as they went along. Right. So I ended up becoming a teacher, going to college, becoming a teacher, getting married to my wonderful husband, Matt. And we got unexpectedly pregnant on our honeymoon, which, 24 years old. I got married at 24, got pregnant at 24, and had a baby all at 24. So a lot going on. And in this process, he was also a teacher. He is also a teacher. I realized that we would not have enough money to cover daycare payments if something did not change, much less have me quit my job. That was just not an option at all. And so we realized, okay, something in our finances has to change. And I said, great, I will do this stupid budget thing until we are debt free. And then I'm done with it. And I'm not ever going to budget again. And this was a big process for us. We had over $111,000 worth of debt on 2 teacher salaries. At the time when we started, we were making maybe combined $85,000 a year. So not a lot of money combined. And we had a child and another child eventually in daycare. So we paid it all off in 4.5 years. Wow. And the pivot, or the huge shock to everyone, was that I became passionate about budgeting and personal finances. The girl who loves spending money, I get a high from spending money. I feel the dopamine hit. I loved the peace of mind and sense of control that I had with my money that I never had before. Right. And I almost became obsessed in a way to where I couldn't stop talking about it. So after we paid off debt, I realized, okay, I'm not going to stop budgeting. This is part of who I am now.
Mhm.
And I was an elementary school teacher, and I decided to create Inspired Budget, which essentially took my skill set and talent of teaching and breaking down concepts that might be abstract or difficult or boring, and
Mhm.
combining that with my passion for personal finance with the goal of truly helping women just take the next step in their money journey, no matter where they are.
Mm, brilliant. Most women would just say, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to drown in this. And we just keep
Mm-hmm.
adding debt. Okay, well, we can
Mm-hmm.
survive on a credit card. We can do this. We can do that. And we continue to go down this very slippery
Mm-hmm.
slope. So, again, we hear so often, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Can you sort of break down? You do it every day on Instagram, all of these beautiful videos to show us how to really create a budget. But for those people who have not found you yet, what do we do? How do we break down and create a budget?
Oh my gosh. I think that it's one thing to create a budget, and
Mhm,
so many budgets that you'll find online or budget sheets, they're very cookie cutter.
mhm,
And I think that that's wonderful, but I also think that that's where we go wrong,
right.
because we create a budget from the start of March 1st to how many days are in March? March 1st to March 31st. And we assume that everything's going to go as planned. And
Right.
that's just not the way that life is. So
Mhm,
creating a budget, I think for anyone who is starting, is first realizing you want to create a budget by your paydays.
mm,
So most people are not going to be paid on the first of the month
right.
and paid only once. So for instance, my husband and I are paid at the end of the month. So we start a budget that lasts from, let's say, February 27th until the
Mm,
next time he's paid again. So our budgets are really about these 2-week time increments where we can say, how can we be intentional with our money in this 2 weeks of time?
right.
What bills do we have coming out? How much are we going to actually spend on groceries? It's not $150 a week anymore. That's
No.
just not the day. That's not where we live. That's not the
No.
time period we live in anymore. And so creating these budgets based on our pay days and our pay
Mhm,
periods that actually match our life, that
right.
don't match this unrealistic version of who we want to be, where we never pick up a coffee, or we
Right.
never, pick up dinner on the way home from work because we're tired and the kids want to be fed. And even though we have food at
Mhm,
home, we do that anyway. No, we
right.
have to create budgets that are realistic for ourselves and our family.
Right. Just like you said, I think so many people go wrong. I have
Yes.
seen couples that come in and they're like, well, here's what, I asked them to do sort of a budget check-in at the end of the month. If we're
Mhm.
fighting about finances, we both need to sit down and look at what's happening here and everyone have equal control and say.
Mhm.
But so often this is the mortgage. Okay. I'm like, what about food? What about dry
Yeah.
cleaning? Gas? Like the extras that you spend on, how much
Mhm.
extra are you spending on? And people just don't think about that. So how can we look at that realistically? Are we looking at our
Mhm.
past budget or our past month and then
Mhm.
creating it? How would you guide us into that?
I think that people really quickly, I want to touch on that. They don't think about that. It's because
Mhm.
I think that when we write a budget for a version of ourselves that does not exist.
Right.
For the assuming everything goes well and I'm never tempted to spend and no unexpected expenses ever come up,
Right.
or, the grocery store prices are exactly where I want them to be.
Mhm.
That's who people are writing a budget for. And that's just not real life. It's
Mhm.
not, that's not going to fly. That's a really good way to fail and be ashamed about yourself and not want to budget and hate the process. So
Right.
instead, I highly recommend tracking expenses. I have been tracking my expenses since I was actually in college, and I found myself getting my debit card declined at the grocery store and realizing I had not a single dime in my checking account because my apartment check had cleared and I didn't know it was going to. And
Mhm.
since that time, I have used just a software program to literally track where my money is going. Not because I am not responsible, but
Mhm.
because I know that as my life changes, as prices increase or decrease, my spending will change, and that's
Mhm.
okay. And so I highly recommend tracking your money. You can do this with an app, paper and pencil, a software program. That way you
Mhm.
have a really realistic view
Right.
of where your money is going. I'm going to give you a classic example: paying for
Yes.
gas. Gas. I will look at how much money we spent in the past month or past pay period on gas because gas prices change. My husband commutes for work, and that amount needs to be realistic. And I don't want to be mad at myself or him or resent anything because I budgeted $100 for gas when really we spent $150.
Right. Yeah. And that is something, and if you have kids, you guys, they're going to come
Oh my
home,
gosh.
right, with the book fairs and the extras that they need. And it's the 100th day of school. And now we have to have t-shirts and all the things. So you speak often about having an emergency fund. That is not where that's coming from, right?
No, that's not where that's coming from. So your emergency fund is really I've lost my job. I got laid off. There's a really massive medical expense. I need a root canal. My dog got in an accident and his leg has to be amputated, which is a true story. Has happened to our family. Your emergency fund is just for that. The purpose of it is so that you don't go further into debt to cover unexpected expenses or emergencies. Because when we go further into debt, we feel like there's this massive setback and then there's just more stress added. And so your emergency fund is for just that. When it comes to kid expenses, oh my goodness, it's crazy because I remember thinking, oh, once my kids are out of daycare, I won't be paying as much, which is true. I don't pay as much as I do. But it's not nothing.
Right.
It adds up, with different extracurricular activities and needs. So I highly recommend creating some sort of a sinking fund, which essentially is just money you set aside every single month to cover anything that's going to come up in a certain category, whether that's for children or clothing or car maintenance, and setting that money aside. So that way, whenever your kid does come home with a permission slip and they need $25 to go, or they come home with a birthday invitation.
Yeah.
And you need to buy a $20 gift for someone and you didn't know it was coming. You can pull money out of that sinking fund and buy a gift with that. It's there to kind of cover those things that pop up that are going to happen.
Right. A lot of women have come in and they have their envelope system, they followed Dave Ramsey and they're like, okay, I have my envelopes. I'm like, is it working? They're like, no, I just keep pulling money from the other envelopes. I'm like, okay, well, we have to change something. What is your thought about all of that? Like, what do you find is the most, critical system that we can put in place?
I think the most critical system is the one that works for you.
Right.
I mean, we can't do like this round peg square hole situation where we're trying to force things to work because it works for someone else. So I personally used to use a cash envelope system, and I do to an extent now, where I used to use it for groceries and restaurants. And just as our life has changed, as our day-to-day life has changed, and even since COVID, we don't use cash envelopes anymore for groceries or restaurants. I only use it for the areas where I tend to overspend. And the reason is because cash is harder for me to give up than swiping a debit card or a credit card. Now, there's a big caveat here. And the fact that some people, when they have cash envelopes, they feel like they have to keep spending until the cash runs out.
Right.
And if that is you, then the cash envelope system is not the best system for you. So once you start seeing that something's not working, or you start resenting the system that you implement and you start dreading it, that's like a cue in your mind that it's time to change something up, that there's that shouldn't be what it feels like for you. And there's a different system that you can put into place. So if women are coming in and they're like, oh my gosh, I have all these cash envelopes, but I'm stealing from clothing to pay to groceries. Maybe we need just to scale it back to one envelope.
Right.
Just what is the one area in your life that stresses you out the most when it comes to money and spending? And let's scale it all back to that one.
I think that the most stressful place would be debt, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, which, I mean, you're not going to use a cash envelope to pay your debt.
Right.
Let me pull cash out of the bank and then put it back in the bank to pay off debt.
Right. But a lot of people really struggle with debt.
Oh, yes.
A lot of times women will come in and they're saying, I'm staying where I am, or I'm struggling mentally, because people don't realize that debt actually does have an emotional and mental aspect to it. And I don't know how to get out of debt. I'm like, well, we need to get you with someone who can help you with that, but we can clean up what is causing you to spend. But a lot of times they will just kind of pigeonhole themselves because of this heavy debt. Do you have any ways that we can start focusing on that and be realistic to get rid of it?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So, that's really what forced me to look at my money differently, was this debt. And I remember feeling like I was standing at the bottom of a mountain and I had to get to the top, but I didn't even know a path. I didn't even have a hiking path. I didn't have any tools to help me get there. And I remember thinking, is this even possible? And so many people feel like that, and they feel like it's not possible. So why bother trying? And I get that. I understand that feeling, but it is possible and it is worth trying. And sometimes we just need someone to pave a path, or someone who took the path before us, that we can follow them up the road to our goal. I would definitely say, when it comes to managing debt, the best thing you can do is start with the end in mind. How much debt do you have? Face your truth, list it out, pull your credit report so you see if you have any debt in collections. Facing your truth can be really eye-opening and scary, but it is so necessary. Then creating a plan, because when you look at that number, it can be so overwhelming that it can actually lead to you feeling paralyzed and not making any decisions. And I don't want you to stay there. I want you to look at that number, and I want you to break it down into bite-sized chunks. This is exactly what I did. I looked at that $111,000. It felt impossible. And I said, okay, I can't think about that number. What can I accomplish in a year? Okay, if I'm going to pay off, let's just say $12,000 in a year, or let's just say $24,000 in a year. Okay, well, how much is that a month? That's $2,000 a month. What steps can I take this month to help me send $2,000 to debt? And that's just numbers. Take the numbers and make it match your life. And that felt a lot more doable. And I was able to celebrate every single month getting a little bit closer to my goal. And breaking that down into bite-sized chunks, number one, is really helpful. And then number two, having some sort of plan to follow. There's so many different debt payoff plans. I actually outline all the different ones in my book, because I don't think that we should all do debt snowball or all try the debt avalanche method. I think that we have to look at our finances and decide, okay, what is best for my family? What is best for my current time? Do I have any high interest debt? How overwhelming is it? So that way you can choose a plan to follow. So that way you have the plan, you have it broken down into bite-sized chunks. So all it comes down to every month is just focusing on the steps you need to take.
Yeah. You said something really important. Well, everything you said was really important. Something that I want to point out is that you said, and celebrate each time you make a step. What a huge way to take away a lot of that burden, a lot of that mental and emotional burden that we carry when it comes to debt. So important to celebrate that. Major uplifter. Another thing that came to mind was that a lot of times we look at something and we think, well, I don't have an extra 200 or an extra 2,000 because I am, receiving the exact same amount of money and I'm definitely living well above my means. What then? What would you suggest then?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. I love it because it's so true. Okay, so for anyone that is at this point and they say, okay, I want to reach this money goal, but I don't have enough extra money every month. Allison, you're saying that, I want to send an extra $1,000 to debt every month, but I only have an extra $500. Let's just do easy math there. How do we find that extra $500? Well, there's really two choices, honestly. Number one is increase your income. Whether that is selling unused items around your house, taking on a side hustle, working overtime, asking for extra hours at work. If your salary, I know that can be hard. Doing something in that regard is increasing your income. That is totally a possibility. Some of us, though, don't want to increase our income. Some of us want to, for me, when I was paying off debt, I was a new mom. I didn't want to go get another job. I was already a teacher. I did do some tutoring in the summer, which did help with increasing income. But for the most part, that wasn't something I was wanting to do. So if you're not wanting to do that, then it's really decreasing your expenses and looking at the 4 major areas of your spending. Because it's one thing to say, okay, well, I'm going to not drink coffee every Friday. I have this thing where every Friday I go get myself a Starbucks coffee because I'm celebrating my week.
Right.
Me cutting that out is not going to have an impact on my bottom line.
Right.
Like that's not going to keep me from reaching my goals, that $6 a week. So looking instead at the 4 major areas of your spending and saying, where can I make impacts in each of these ways so that way it has a bigger impact on my spending. So number 1 is housing, whether you're renting or your mortgage, you're owning your utilities, all those types of things. Really, you don't want your housing to exceed 30% of your take-home pay, which in today's day and age, easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
So housing, cutting back, even if that means, downsizing, and that can be a very drastic thing, but they could also fall into other areas as well. Number 2, insurance. Every year, my husband and I shop around for a less expensive car insurance, home insurance. That one commitment can save us $1,000 a year from that one task. And talk about doing one thing that literally carries through and has an impact every month.
Absolutely.
Like, that's what I'm about. I want to do less work and see bigger returns.
Right.
So instead of cutting out my weekly coffee or trying to, only buy generic and make everything from scratch and not have any frozen pizza nights, I'd rather just call insurance and shop around for a different one.
Right.
So we have housing, we have insurance, transportation, looking at your car payment. Can you, if it's really too high, can you sell it and buy a cheaper car to lower your car payment by $100 to $200 a month? Is that possible? And then, of course, the car insurance falls under insurance. And then we have food. Food is a massive one. Groceries, takeout, asking yourself, how can I cut back? If you can cut back between $100 to $200 on each of those in a month, there's your $500.
There's $500. Yeah. And I know that I've never looked at it like that. Right. And I've been in control of our money for 22 years and I've never looked at it like that.
It's almost like we think about these big things and it feels like it's too big to tackle. And that like, oh, well, if I get a new home insurance policy, it's not going to add up that much, but it does. Yeah. When you look at those 4 areas and you make one change in those 4 areas, that can add up to $500 to $1,000 a month. And I would rather do that and keep my Starbucks Friday coffee run.
Amen. Amen. So what are some of the biggest mistakes? I think that's a mistake when we don't look at our budget as something that can be moved around to create extra space for us, extra padding. But what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making?
Oh, lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is such a huge mistake. And I'm not saying lifestyle creep is bad. I mean, everyone has lifestyle creep. And let's talk about what it is. It's whenever, as your income increases over time, even just slightly, your spending and your bottom line increases over time. So whether you move into a more expensive home or you buy a more expensive car, there's something about us reaching higher income levels that we want to celebrate by spending money. And I get that. And our family, we've done that too, but you have to do it within reason. And being really mindful that as we continue to add different subscriptions to our budget or different little things, overall, it adds up so much over time. And I don't know about you, but as I've gotten older, I mean, I'm a mom of two boys, and as I have moved out of my 20s and into my later 30s, my desire for stuff has really decreased, and my desire for experiences and memories has increased. So for me, when I think through my spending, I always come back to, does this align with what I really want in life? So for instance, we have upstairs in our kids' game room, we have this old sofa that, I mean, it's okay. It's not disgusting. It's a pull-out sofa. It's not pretty. The kids jump off of it, onto a huge beanbag chair. So it's taken a beating, and I would love to replace it with like a Pottery Barn sofa. But then I remind myself, okay, that Pottery Barn sofa is going to cost me $2,000. Is that in line with how I really want to spend my money?
Right.
And the answer is no. I don't think my kids care if they have a Pottery Barn sofa. I'm never up there that much sitting on the sofa. I would rather take that $1,000 to $2,000, and I would rather put that towards our summer family vacation.
Right.
And when we can ask ourselves those types of things, you can manage lifestyle creep, which is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I agree 100%. A lot of times that creep also creates emotional stress. And people do not realize that the not being enoughness often comes about because of their surroundings and who they are surrounding themselves with.
Yes.
So be careful, right?
Oh
You don't
my
have to
gosh.
keep up.
No. And that's like so true. And I think about that often. And I see that, you and I mean, we live this is the nicest town that I've ever lived in, the nicest neighborhood I've ever lived in. And I feel myself being drawn to, I want a beautiful home, and I want to fill it with beautiful furniture. And I want this like Pinterest looking life, but I have to remind myself, like, that is not real life.
Right.
That is not what, and that's also not where I want there to be value in my life. And that's where we have to think about comparison. And also, just my tip for anyone who's listening, if you struggle with comparison, mute people. You can unfollow or mute. No one has to know. I have muted friends that I follow on social media because it's not good for my mental health at times. And they don't have to know I muted them. And I can always go back and find them if I need to, if I want to catch up on everything else. But it's not worth my mental health. And it's not worth for me making financial decisions that aren't in my best interest or my family's best interest.
Yeah. Allison and I share a community. We live in a very, I would say, affluent community. We really do. But we do see a lot of women where they're trying to keep up, and then something happens and their husband loses their job and they can't keep up. Then we kind of get into a shame cycle when something does happen. And, we have to really watch how we connect not only with the people around us, but with ourselves. Is it realistic? Is it worth going into that mindset and that spin cycle? You also said something that I think is so important. Mute the people on Instagram or social media. One thing that a lot of people do not realize is how emotionally impacted they are by what they see. And they follow all of the influencers for clothes, and then they're buying and buying and buying. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh. This is like, I think that it's a problem. It brings me back to years ago, probably back in 2013. I was on Facebook and I was seeing all of my friends taking summer vacations, and we were struggling with money. We didn't have money to take a summer vacation. Our vacations consisted of visiting family in their cities, and that was it. And I remember seeing all of these people taking vacations, but the way I consumed that was that everyone's taking all of these vacations.
Right.
My mind wasn't able to piece out that, okay, family A is taking one vacation, family B is taking one vacation, family C. All I could see was that everyone is taking all of these vacations because it was what was in my feed. And emotionally, what I did was I said, I want a vacation. I wanted to drain. I proposed this to my husband. Let's drain our emergency fund to take a beach vacation. He was like, are you crazy?
No.
And I was, after a while, I was like, yes, I am crazy. Okay. That's not a good idea. But it was almost like this toxic mindset of assuming that everyone has everything and multiple of it. So when we follow 20 influencers or 20 people that are showing what they have or what they want, sometimes our minds take it in that that's the way everyone's life is. And influencer A has the nice house and influencer B took the nice vacation, but we see it as both of them have the nice house and took the nice vacation. And that's just not, like, we can't have everything. And that's okay. We can't afford everything in life. So really it's about how do we afford and spend money on what we value the most. But sometimes those values can be I don't know, just like we can be distracted to think that we need and want everything, when really, when we stop and pause and we kind of turn off all the noise and we sit down, even with a journal, and we journal about, what do I actually want? Like, not what the world tells me I want, not what my community or friends want, but what do I want? We find that we can probably get to it. We can get to that goal of what we want.
Yeah, agreed. What is also needed in our mindset, especially when we're talking about, well, we're going to take the vacation, we're going to drain the emergency fund. A lot of those people that are showing up on those vacations and the houses and the clothes, they receive those for free.
Oh yes. A lot of those people do. They do. And, as for me, I have a decent following on Instagram, and I get reached out to all the time about free things.
Right.
And I never take it, because number one, I don't want more stuff.
Right.
Number one, I don't want more stuff. And number two, I don't want the pressure of feeling like I have to promote this because you sent it to me for free. Yeah. So if I'm promoting anything, it's because I'm getting paid to do it. It's because it's something I believe in, and I don't want your free stuff.
Right.
That's the way I feel.
Exactly. Agreed. We look at all of that, and we are in the mindset now to make some changes, to live wisely. What are some of your top tips for women to really, bring in and kind of wrangle what's been going on for them?
One of my top tips is to make it a habit. To make just managing your money, thinking about your money and working on your money a habit. Right. For instance, just having a money date with yourself or your partner is such an incredible habit that can promote positive communication between each other. Yeah. And then also just creating it with yourself, that this is something that is so important in my life. Money, you're going to have to deal with it and spend it every single day for the rest of your life. So we have to create habits and have this positive relationship with something that we are going to be surrounded with forever. So I would definitely say we call them family business meetings, where we talk about, my husband and I, every Sunday, we talk about our budget. We talk about our spending. We also talk about any of our kids' activities we have coming up that week, what our meal plan is, who's cooking which meals. If there's a meal I would need him to cook, what time he's going to be home from work. I have the joy of working from home. And so we have this where it kind of sets our week up for success. So I would say definitely have a money date with yourself, where you can look and set a couple of goals, but then also look at what you have accomplished and find patterns in both where you feel like you have setbacks, but also find patterns in positive behavior that you have. Definitely a weekly date. Number 2 is writing a mini budget. So a lot of times, this is my secret weapon with budgeting. We write a budget for our pay period, whether that's 2 weeks to a month, and something comes up. And instead of wanting to throw that away and saying, hey, you know what? I suck at this. This is clearly not for me. Everyone who says it works, like there's some sort of like secret society where they're like, this really doesn't work, but we're going to make everyone think it does. Right. Instead of letting yourself be in that mindset, make a mini budget. I'll do it even just like on a sticky note. I'll write down my checking account balance, how many days I have until I'm paid again. And literally just, if I have $500 in my account, where is each of that $500 going to go? Do I need to go to the grocery store? Do I have a bill coming out? That way I am intentionally taking control over that money, even when something unplanned happened and it kind of threw me off. That doesn't mean that I have to stay in that place.
Right. I love those tips. You just said something that sparked a question. And a lot of times women will not be in control of their finances, just like you were talking about before, and they have all of the auto draft. Is that something that you do recommend people to do and keep a track of it and know exactly when it would be likely to come out? Or if you're not good with money, should we not be auto drafting things?
This is a great question. I love auto draft because it makes my life easier and simpler. Right. What I do though, is I have a physical calendar, because I'm very much a paper pen type of person. I enjoy it. I enjoy handwriting it. I like using pretty colors on my calendar. Yeah. I have a physical calendar, and I will write the day that the bill is going to be auto drafted out, because it's typically around the same day. And I'll write the amount underneath. And I look at this calendar when I'm writing a budget. And so I see it as kind of my it's the first thing I do before a new month when I'm writing my budget. So I know that if for instance, on the 16th, Netflix is coming out, $16.46, I have it there. It's auto drafted, but I know that it's coming.
Right.
Where we struggle is whenever things are auto drafted, but it catches us off guard.
Right.
And then we're like, oh my gosh, I forgot that the electricity bill was going to be coming out. So this is more of a purposeful way for you to still have the simplicity and the ease of using auto draft, but then also making sure that those costs and expenses are on the forefront of your mind and are not going to catch you off guard.
Talking about like Netflix, the subscriptions that add up and people do not even realize, oh, I have $300 worth of subscriptions. I had no idea. That's something we should absolutely have in our budget, correct?
Oh my gosh, yes. So one thing about tracking your expenses, when I was talking to you earlier in the episode about how I literally track where all my money goes, tracking your expenses, it forces you to look at your spending habits and your spending patterns instead of just like brushing them under the rug and pretending like they don't exist. So it really forces us to look at, okay, well, where are we spending our money and is it worth it? And that we ask ourselves, we almost do subscription audits like twice a year, where we audit it and we say, okay, we're paying for these 4 streaming services. When was the last time we really logged into HBO Max? And when we realize that it's been a while, we cancel it. And then when like White Lotus came out, I got it for another month. And then I canceled it afterwards because I was like, I don't watch anything else on there right now. So it's okay for you to do these expense audits. I think, and subscription audits. I think so often we feel like, oh my gosh, if I get rid of it, I can't ever get it back. And that is not true. I got rid of HBO Max and then 3 months later, I got it again for White Lotus and, and I canceled it because I know I don't really watch anything on there. And that's okay. You can do those types of things.
Yeah, agreed. You have lots of resources on your website. Can you talk about what is available? And then you have a new book coming out. So we're going to talk about that too.
Oh my gosh, yes. So on my website, I have so many articles, budget binder templates, everything that you need to, articles about making more money, saving more money, budgeting money, paying off debt, just everything. I also actually have a podcast, the Inspire Budget Podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast, I'm guessing you like podcasts, you can check that out, Inspire Budget Podcast. And then I do have a new book. I'm so excited. My book right now is actually available for pre-order, and I have a really special bonus. You know how I do those real people budgets on Instagram that everyone loves? So I have a really special bonus, Danielle, for it's essentially a budget review vault, where it's a vault of me going over people's budgets in depth. So if you're thinking, you know what, I'm not paid the same. My income varies. I do a very in-depth review of someone's income that varies. Or I'm a single mother. I do a review for that. I have high debt. I do a budget review for that. So when you pre-order and you go to inspirebudget.com/moneymadeeasy, you can pre-order it, enter your order number, your name and email address, and I will give you access to that for free. And so, yes, but my book is called Money Made Easy and it's available for pre-order now. I'm really excited about it because, I don't think that one size fits all. I don't believe in, there's these cookie cutter solutions that will fit every person because every person's finances are different and their families are unique. So instead, what Money Made Easy does is it presents you with information for you to pick and choose what works for you. And so it's more of like a choose your own adventure type book instead of a like, do this, this is the next step book, but it is still a step-by-step system that allows you to be flexible and make money work for you in a way that leads to you really being like having peace and security and freedom around money.
Yeah, I love all of that. And you just heard her talk about Inspired Budget. If you get onto social media, you will find all of those great budget reviews. I love those personally. I'm like, oh,
thank
I
you.
can catch up on those. Okay, I'm watching. I'm like, girl, you could do better. All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So go and listen to the podcast, pre-order the book. I actually want to just, before we wrap up, is there something that we missed or something that you wished women knew in totality that would just maybe shift their perspective and let them know that this is doable.
Oh my gosh. Your past money choices do not sum up who you are as a person or what you are capable of doing in the future.
Yeah.
No matter how much credit card debt you have, car debt you have, no matter if you have struggled with impulse spending in the past, no matter what those choices have been, those do not define who you are now.
Right.
And they do not define what your future with money can look like. Having that debt, making those choices don't make you unlovable. They don't make you difficult to be around.
Right.
They don't make you anything. They have no impact on who you are. They are lessons. Those are choices. We have to accept that those were the choices we made. Say, I'm going to let go of that. And what is one thing I can do to move forward to be the person I want to be with my money? A lot of times that comes down to doing exactly what you're doing now, listening to a podcast, educating yourself, and just being more aware.
And all of those things allow us to get into a space where we can get our lives together and feel mentally and emotionally well and feel like we're thriving, right? Because you've heard me so often talk about the 5 sort of masters of our lives: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and financial, which is why I had to have Allison here, right? Because so often we miss that last piece and it impacts everything else. So there's so many things you can do, but it is all very possible. Allison, I end the podcast the same every single time, and that is with 3 gratitudes. So I will ask you, what are your 3 gratitudes? 3 things that you're thankful for right now, 3 things that, you wish other people knew. I'll leave it to you, but what are your 3?
I was actually one of my things that I do every morning. I have this same on the weekdays, same process. I take my kids to school, and I'm very privileged to have this, and I definitely work towards it. But I take my kids to school. I come back, I sit in that pink chair right there with my cup of coffee. I listen to music and I journal for at least 10 to 15 minutes. And this morning I was journaling about how many blessings I have in my life and how it's really nothing I had ever anticipated for my life, but how amazing and the journey that I've taken on has got me to where I am. So I will just share some of those gratitudes that I actually journaled about this morning. One of them is the schedule and the business that I have that allows me the flexibility as a mother. The fact that I can be there to go to my son's sweetheart tea in 2nd grade tomorrow. The fact that I can pick them up from school and drop them off. It's something I always dreamed about and something that I realize so many women don't get. And I am so thankful to have that. So that's definitely one of them. Another one is my supportive husband who, starting this entire business really threw him for a loop. He wasn't always on board because it definitely was a struggle in the beginning. It was it was not always an easy process. We had ups and downs. We were in therapy, but chooses me every day and I choose him. So I'm definitely grateful for him. And then, gosh, I'm grateful for the community I live in. I moved here in 2019 and I didn't know anyone. And I remember being in an appointment with my therapist via Zoom. And I remember thinking and talking to her and saying, I'm such an outgoing person, but I don't know anyone. And I'm so scared. Like, how do I make friends as an adult, especially as an adult who works from home and doesn't go into a workplace? And I have just really had the joy of getting to know the women that are, the mothers to my children's friends, the women in our neighborhood. And I really am so thankful for their friendship because as much as, some of us independent people, I mean, I'm not super independent, but my husband is, think we can go through and do this whole thing called life on our own. It's so wonderful to have a community and a support system when things don't always go as planned.
Yeah. Agreed. Beautiful 3. Allison, thank you so much for your time and for your energy and for sharing all of these tips and letting us know that this is possible.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It was a joy.
I honestly and truly cannot wait to dive into Allison's new book, Money Made Easy, to elevate my own personal understanding and knowledge. If you would like to join me, you can find Allison at Inspired Budget on Instagram and TikTok. You can also check out her free training and resources on inspiredbudget.com. And of course, you can unlock the budget vault like she was talking about by pre-ordering her book, Money Made Easy, on Amazon or her website. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you've enjoyed these tips to bettering your life and are seeking daily inspiration and additional tools and tips, follow me on social media at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can also visit the show notes, the blog, and my website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.